Meanwhile, President Biden visiting New Jersey to push his Build Back Better agenda with the hopes of passing it before his trip to Europe on Thursday.
But it was this that made the headlines. Commander-in-Chief joking while talking to a classroom of kids in the Garden State about this.
You know, when you're president, see all these people here? They're with you all the time. They get to ask you all kinds of questions, and you try to figure out how you can avoid answering them sometimes.
All right, our panelists are back with us now. Peter Morisi, Ashley Davis, and Brian Lieb. It did get a laugh from the crowd there, the group of elementary school students. But Peter, there are some questions about transparency from the Biden administration and whether or not he could make himself more available to answer reporters' questions, considering there are a lot of topics that reporters might be curious about right now. Your thoughts on the president and whether or not he could be avoiding some reporters' questions right now?
Well, I think it's clear that he's avoiding reporters' questions, and his White House handlers are making a considerable effort to discourage him. I mean, because he gets so many things wrong. You see, he tries to reposition issues by altering the facts a bit. If you ask him about high gas prices, he says, well, OPEC's not producing enough oil. Well, that's true, but they're only not producing enough oil because we cut back production by 2 million barrels thanks to Mr. Biden's policies. You know, he says that employers can't find workers because they're not paying enough. Well, that's true, but that's only because Mr. Biden pays people so much money not to work. And it goes on, whether we're talking about Nord Stream 2 or the facts relating to Afghanistan. The things he says are often not strictly untrue, but an effort to reposition reality so as to deflect blame for his policy misjudgments, his policy failings. His personal biases are terrible. I mean, they influence policy in ways that, you know, is very disturbing to me on a range of issues. So, you know, when you've got a character like this running around and he's not skillful, to say the way George H.W. Bush was very skillful at this game, then you keep him away from the press.
Right, and that's what they're doing. The communication department clearly has their own strategy. They've been adhering to it. Ashley Davis, your thoughts on this? I think about the CNN town hall where the president said, I haven't visited the border. Well, I have in the past, but I probably should. These are just one of the examples of you can see why the comm department may keep him away.
Well, absolutely. And I think that what the clip you showed earlier was just another gaffe, and it was a joke. But however, I think the problem is really the mainstream media, not Newsmax, of course, but especially the left-leaning media that are not giving him responsibility or holding him to his feet to the fire in regards to what's happening at the border, what's happening with the economy, what's happening with people not going back to work, what's happening with inflation. And I think that there has to be some responsibility. And I really think it's up to the media to make them answer these questions, and it has to be him. He is the leader of the free world.
Yeah, Brian, about 30 seconds for you. What you'd like to ask the president if you had the chance?
Well, I'd like to ask the president why he continues to duck straightforward questions about what's happening in this country and all the crises that are happening throughout this country. I mean, what happened in New Jersey at that school was President Biden feeling that the cameras probably were off and he could let his hair down a little bit and he could speak the truth. The truth is he definitely is ducking the press. His entire team is ducking the press. They don't want to they don't want to answer, guys, the tough questions that the American people want answers on. And we need to keep pushing them. Again, Newsmax, you guys are doing God's work and pushing for that. I wish other networks would take your lead on that.
Yeah, record border crossings, of course, an increase in COVID cases. That's still happening right now. Questions about the booster shots, labor shortages, supply chain issues. He's welcome to come on our program anytime. We'd be happy to sit down with the president.
Did you mention inflation?
Inflation added to the list. We've got questions about that too. Thank you, panelists, for joining us today. We appreciate you all weighing in.
Hi, Rob Carson here. If you love watching Newsmax, you're really going to love listening to our new podcast. It's called the Newsmax Daily. I host it, and I give you the best briefing of the big news of the day, top newsmaker interviews, and even, yes, a few laughs. I know it's hard to believe. So if you're driving, walking, exercising, just about anywhere, you can connect with the Newsmax Daily with me, Rob Carson. Find our podcast online or go to iPhone, Spotify, iHeart, Stitcher, and more, and start listening today.